Have you ever faced a challenge? Maybe received some tough feedback at work, or even just had a minor setback?
Oh, definitely. Happens all the time.
And in that moment, did you feel like your core abilities were under scrutiny? Like, you were being judged?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you somehow manage to see it as an incredible opportunity to learn and, well, grow?
That's a great question.
That immediate, almost visceral reaction, it points to something really quite profound, I think, about how we approach not just those moments, but our entire lives.
It's so true, that internal response. It reveals a deep-seated belief system about ourselves. A lot of us aren't even consciously aware of it.
Right.
Yet it powerfully dictates our reactions, our resilience, and ultimately what we believe is possible for us.
That's exactly why today we are taking a deep dive into exactly that, this simple yet profoundly impactful belief about yourself that psychologists call mindset. And this isn't just about, positive thinking. It's a fundamental lens through which you view the world.
Absolutely.
This belief, it impacts everything, from what you perceive as your personality and your true potential, to how you cope with setbacks, and even how you engage in your most intimate relationships.
It truly permeates every corner of your existence. Much of what you consider to be your unique personality actually stems from this mindset.
Really? That's fascinating.
Yeah, and perhaps most surprisingly, much of what might be preventing you from fulfilling your potential also grows directly out of it.
Wow. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the two fundamental mindsets that shape all of this. We're drawing extensively from some groundbreaking work on this topic.
Yeah, the source material is really rich.
We're pulling out compelling examples to illustrate how these mindsets play out in real life, shaping your experiences and, well, your outcomes.
And the goal really is to show you a clear pathway to unlock capabilities you might not even realize you possess.
Right. Get ready for some genuine insights, because this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, so let's unpack where this powerful concept of mindset even came from. Was there like a specific moment or discovery that brought it all into focus?
Absolutely. Our journey into mindset theory, it begins with a fascinating origin story. It traces back to a young researcher who was, frankly, obsessed.
Obsessed with what exactly?
Obsessed with understanding not just whether people succeeded or failed, but how they actually coped with failure.
Ah, okay. The response.
Exactly. It was the response to difficulty that captivated her. She realized that understanding this response held the key to unlocking true potential.
That's a powerful distinction.
Yeah.
So how did she actually, set up an experiment to observe these reactions?
Well, she designed a study involving children and puzzles. Pretty standard stuff, or so she thought.
Okay.
She'd bring children into a room, one at a time, make them comfortable, and then give them a series of puzzles. The first few were designed to be fairly easy, just to build some confidence. But then, the real test came.
Yeah.
The puzzles got progressively harder.
The difficulty ramped up.
Yes. And she watched as they grunted, perspired, and toiled, observing their strategies, trying to probe what they were thinking and feeling. She fully expected to see differences in how children would cope, but what she saw was something else entirely, something unexpected.
And what was so surprising about their reactions? What did she see?
The responses were truly stark. Really different. One particular 10-year-old boy, when confronted with the hard puzzles, pulled up his chair, rubbed his hands together, smacked his lips, and enthusiastically declared, "I love a challenge."
Yeah, just like that, rubbing his hands together.
Yep. It was an almost joyful response to difficulty. Another child, sweating away on these challenging puzzles, looked up with this pleased expression and said, with a real sense of authority, I was hoping this would be informative.
Informative? That's not what you'd expect a kid struggling with a puzzle to say.
Exactly. I can just imagine the researcher's confusion. Her initial thought was literally, what's wrong with them?
Right, because she expected them to be frustrated or upset.
Precisely. She had always believed that you either coped with failure or you didn't. She certainly never thought anyone loved failure. These children seemed almost alien to her, operating on a completely different wavelength.
So her own view was more fixed.
Very much so. She had personally grown up with the belief that human qualities, like intelligence, were carved in stone. You were either smart or you weren't, and that was that. She never expected anyone to welcome or embrace what she perceived as failure.
But these kids, they did.
And this unexpected response profoundly shifted her own perspective. Those children, they became her role models. They clearly understood something fundamental that she, as a researcher, hadn't grasped yet.
They had the key somehow.
They possessed the kind of mindset that could genuinely turn a failure into a gift.
So what was that profound knowledge they held? What were they seeing that she was missing initially?
It was simple, really, when she figured it out. They knew that human qualities, intellectual skills, for example, were not fixed.
Ah, okay. Not set in stone.
Exactly. They could be cultivated.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing in that puzzle experiment. They weren't failing, they were learning.
They were getting smarter.
Yes. This was the genesis of a truly groundbreaking insight. The understanding that our abilities aren't static, they can grow.
So these children, they basically helped uncover this central concept we're exploring today. The two distinct ways people perceive their fundamental qualities.
That's right.
We're talking about things like intelligence, talent, even core aspects of your personality.
Exactly. And these are what we now call the two fundamental mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset.
Okay.
They represent profoundly different internal narratives about who we are and what we're capable of. Understanding them is, well, it's the first step to understanding ourselves, really.
Let's start with the fixed mindset.
Sure.
So the idea here is that your basic qualities, intelligence, artistic talent, whatever their static traits.
Static. Fixed.
You have a certain amount, and that's kind of it. It's like a hand of cards you're dealt.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
And you're always trying to convince yourself and others you have a royal flush, even if you're secretly worried it's just a pair of tens.
Exactly. And this core belief, it leads to a constant, almost desperate need to prove themselves.
Right. Gotta look good.
The primary goal becomes to look smart or talented, to appear competent at all costs. And this drives very specific behaviors.
Like, for instance, when faced with challenges, people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid them.
They shy away.
Why is that?
Because challenges might expose their flaws, their perceived inadequacies. If they don't try, they can't fail, right? And so their fixed intelligence or talent remains unthreatened, at least in their own eyes.
That makes sense. And what about when they do encounter obstacles?
Well, they often get defensive or just give up easily. A setback isn't seen as a signal to try harder or differently.
It's more like proof.
It's confirmation of their inherent limitations. It can lead to feelings of worthlessness or just paralysis.
An effort. How does effort fit into this fixed view?
Effort. For someone with a fixed mindset, effort is seen as fruitless or worse.
Worse. How so?
It's almost an insult. It suggests you lack innate ability. The thinking goes, if you're truly gifted, you shouldn't need to put in that much effort. Effort is for those who aren't naturally smart or talented.
Wow. So effort itself is a sign of weakness.
Pretty much. And this also impacts how they handle criticism. Even useful negative feedback is often ignored, dismissed, or met with blame.
They don't see it as helpful.
They perceive it as a direct judgment of their fixed self, their core being, rather than just an opportunity for improvement.
Okay. And what about the success of others? How does that land?
For the fixed mindset, this can be deeply threatening. Another person's success can feel like it diminishes their own fixed worth.
Like there's only so much success to go around.
Kind of. If someone else shines, it makes them feel less brilliant, less capable, and more worried about their own perceived fixed traits. It becomes a comparison game they feel they're losing.
So the consequence of all these tendencies is pretty significant, I imagine.
It really is. Individuals with a fixed mindset may plateau early and ultimately achieve less than their full potential. They might collect affirmations, tell themselves they're great, but they're often just running in place, constantly proving what they think they already are, instead of actually growing.
Okay, so that's the fixed mindset.
Yeah.
Now let's flip that coin and talk about the growth mindset. How does that look different?
It's a total shift in perspective. In this mindset, those very same basic qualities, intelligence, talent, personality, are not seen as static at all.
They can change?
Yes, they can be cultivating through consistent effort, through using good strategies, and crucially, through getting help from others.
So the hand you're dealt is just the starting point.
Exactly. It's the starting point for immense development.
Does this mean people with a growth mindset think anyone can just become, I don't know, Einstein or Beethoven if they try hard enough?
No, it's not about unrealistic expectations like that. It's more subtle. They believe that a person's true potential is fundamentally unknown and unknowable.
Unknown and unknowable. That's a powerful idea.
Isn't it? It's genuinely impossible to foresee what can be accomplished with years of passion, toil, and dedicated training.
It really shatters that myth of instant genius, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned figures like Geraldine Page, the actress.
Yeah, a truly great actress who was advised early on to give it up for lack of talent.
Wow. or the painter Cézanne.
Cézanne, whose early paintings were apparently pretty bad, yet they both went on to achieve greatness.
So what's the insight there?
The profound insight is that true potential often takes time to flower. It requires relentless effort and a deep belief in the cultivable nature of one's abilities, rather than just relying on some innate gift.
Okay, so how does this belief translate into behavior? How do growth mindset people handle things differently?
Well, first, they embrace challenges. They see them as exciting opportunities for growth, not something to fear. It's a chance to stretch and expand their abilities.
And when faced with obstacles, they don't just give up.
No, they persist. Setbacks are viewed as just part of the learning process, not a sign to quit. They're like clues, really, pointing towards how to do it better next time.
And effort. It's not a bad word anymore.
Far from it. Effort is seen as the path to mastery. It's not a sign of deficiency. It's what ignites ability and transforms it into real accomplishment. It's absolutely essential for achieving anything worthwhile.
What about criticism? How do they take feedback?
They learn from it. They see it as valuable feedback, not a personal attack. Even if the feedback isn't delivered perfectly, if they can learn something from it, they'll take it on board to help them improve.
Okay. And the success of others? Still threatening.
Not at all. It's seen as a source of inspiration. They find lessons in how others achieve success, recognizing shared pathways to growth and seeing what's possible for themselves. It's motivating, not diminishing.
So the consequence here is the opposite of the fixed mindset.
Exactly. The powerful consequence of adopting this mindset is that individuals tend to reach ever higher levels of achievement. It becomes an upward spiral of learning, resilience, and accomplishment.
It really makes you think. As you hear this description, which mindset sounds more familiar to you, or maybe to people you know? It's definitely a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
What really stands out when we compare these two mindsets is just how differently they lead people to interpret the exact same everyday events, especially when it comes to navigating failure and challenges. The contrast is really quite stark, isn't it?
It truly is. I mean, it's night and day sometimes. For someone operating with a fixed mindset, even relatively minor setbacks can be interpreted in a, well, catastrophic way.
Catastrophic? Like what?
Okay, imagine getting a C+ on a paper. Or maybe receiving a parking ticket. Or just being sort of brushed off by a friend.
Yeah, annoying things, but not world-ending.
Right. But for the fixed mindset, these seemingly small events can spiral into profound self-condemnation.
You hear people saying things like,
I'd feel like a reject. I'm a total failure. I'm an idiot. It becomes a direct measure of their competence and worth.
wow. So it goes straight to identity.
Straight to identity, leading to thoughts like, my life is pitiful. I have no life. Or, life stinks. I'm stupid. Nothing good ever happens to me.
That sounds incredibly painful, actually.
It is. And their actions often reflect this internal collapse. They might retreat entirely, go into a closet and sit there.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's a direct quote from the research. Or they might pick a fight with somebody, cry, or even break something. The raw material of a C+ key ticket, a slight, it transforms into utter failure and paralysis for them.
It's amazing how common yet devastating that response can be.
It really is. But now, watch what happens when you give people with the growth mindset the same exact scenario.
Okay, same C+ CO, same parking ticket.
Yep. Their response is dramatically different. Now, they still feel distressed, of course.
Sure, nobody likes getting a C+ or a ticket.
Exactly. No one is smacking their lips with relish at these events. But, and this is the key, they don't label themselves as failures. They don't throw up their hands in despair.
So what do they do instead?
They focus on concrete, actionable responses. It's more like, okay, I need to work hard on my next paper, maybe speak to the teacher, or I need to be more careful where I park, or maybe I should contest the ticket. For the friend, I should find out what's wrong with my friend.
Much more constructive.
Totally. Even in distress, they remain ready to take the risks, confront the challenges, and keep working at them. They understand that a moment in time, a single event, doesn't define them forever.
This brings us to that crucial point about risk and effort again. For the fixed mindset, just venturing out and putting in effort can feel like you're revealing your inadequacy, right?
Yes, exactly. They often reinterpret common sayings to fit this view. Like instead of nothing ventured, nothing gained, it becomes
Nothing ventured, nothing lost.
Yeah.
Safer not to try.
right. Or if at first you don't succeed, a growth mindset person finishes, try again. But the fixed mindset person might think,
You probably don't have the ability. Ouch!
or even if Rome wasn't built in a day, maybe it wasn't meant to be. give up.
So the core fear is exposure.
The core fear is that effort, especially if it doesn't lead to immediate success, might reveal your inadequacies. It might expose that you were not up to the task. And this fear can be so paralyzing that it literally turns people into non-learners.
Non-learners, how so?
Well, there was a study of students in Hong Kong. They were asked if they'd take an English course, if it might expose their deficiencies but would greatly improve their skills. Those with a fixed mindset said no.
They wouldn't take the course that would help them.
Nope. To feel smart in the short run, they were willing to put their actual college careers at risk rather than look dumb temporarily.
Wow, that's really something. Protecting that fragile self-worth really keeps you stuck.
It absolutely does.
It reminds me of those graduate students you mentioned, the ones who'd been hotshots in college, top of their class. But then they get to grad school and suddenly they see faculty with these long lists of publications, or advanced students already submitting articles and writing grant proposals. And their immediate thought is,
oh my God, I can't do that. Total comparison, instant feeling of inadequacy.
but what they forgot, as the research puts it, was the word yet.
Yes. The crucial understanding that they didn't know how to do those things yet.
Right. Isn't that precisely what school is for? To teach you how to do these things, not because you are already knowing them.
Exactly. This simple word, yet, it reframes inability. It turns it into a temporary state, a bridge to future learning and capability. It reminds us that our current level of skill is not our final destination.
It's such a powerful little word for reframing any challenge. I can't do this yet.
It changes everything.
Okay, so if ability isn't carved in stone and our potential is truly unknowable, what does that mean for that pervasive belief we have that success is solely about having a gift or some kind of natural talent? This section really seems to challenge that whole myth.
It absolutely does. The idea of innate genius is just so deeply ingrained in our culture, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
We love those stories.
We do. But when you look closely at many truly successful individuals, you find surprising realities. Take Ben Hogan, for example,
Yeah.
one of the greatest golfers of all time.
Right. Natural talent? Surely.
You'd think, but he was actually described as completely uncoordinated and graceless as a child.
No way. Ben Hogan.
Yes, he achieved his greatness through sheer disciplined effort, not some innate gift for golf.
That's incredible. What about Nadja Salerno Sonnenberg, the violinist? She was a prodigy, right?
She made her debut at 10, but when she arrived at Juilliard, the top music school, she actually had a repertoire of awful habits, awkward fingerings, wrong violin position.
Really? Even as a prodigy?
Yes. And initially, she refused to change. She was used to success, used to that prodigy label. It defined her.
Stuck in that fixed mindset about her talent.
Exactly. But after several years, she saw other students who worked incredibly hard, catching up, and even surpassing her. And that led to a major crisis of confidence.
Reality check.
Big time. It was only then that she realized that trying and failing and an honest failure was better than the course she had been on. She started to go all out in her training, really putting in the work.
And it paid off.
It did. She eventually won a major competition. And now she says, reflecting on it, you have to work hardest for the things you love most. And when it's music you love, you're in for the fight of your life.
Wow, what a powerful transformation. From assumed fixed talent to understanding that relentless effort is the real path.
It really highlights how a fixed mindset can hinder even immense talent, while a growth mindset can ultimately unleash it.
This also brings us to a slightly problematic idea you mentioned, the notion of being special. It seems harmless, like having an I love me mirror for positive affirmation. Where does that go wrong?
Well, the mirror itself isn't the issue. The problem arises when special starts to mean better than others, when it means a more valuable human being, superior, or crucially, entitled.
Entitlement. That's the danger zone.
Exactly. This is the kind of fixed mindset thinking that frequently leads to arrogance and then deep disappointment when the world doesn't automatically bow down to your perceived fixed talents or specialness.
Right. And from this fixed mindset, putting in effort, especially hard effort, is actually seen as a risk if you're supposed to be gifted, isn't it?
It is. If you're considered a genius or a natural, putting in effort is a big risk. Why? Because it can reduce you.
How does it reduce you?
It suggests you weren't inherently perfect to begin with. It casts doubt on your innate superiority. Effort, in this view, is only for those who have deficiencies, not for the truly gifted.
So effort undermines the very idea of being naturally talented. What a trap.
It's a huge trap.
Okay, when we talk about mindsets in action, the worlds of sports and business, they offer some incredibly clear and compelling examples, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. These arenas are full of high stakes, high
Yeah.
pressure, constant performance evaluation. They're perfect laboratories for observing mindsets.
And they really show how champions are truly made, not just born. Let's take John McEnroe. Huge talent, right?
Immense natural talent, enough to be the world's #1 tennis player for 4 years straight.
But
But he did not love to learn and did not thrive on challenges. According to the research, when the going got rough, he often folded.
really, McEnroe folded.
Apparently so, in key moments.
Yeah.
He even admitted later that he didn't enjoy a moment of playing tennis itself. What he enjoyed were the consequences of his success, the adulation, the money, being at the top. The outcome, not the process.
And he had that famous temper, the entitlement, blaming external factors.
Exactly. A fever, a backache, the weather, bad calls, always something else. This fixed mindset, this sense of entitlement and inability to learn from setbacks, arguably prevented him from fulfilling his absolute full potential. He wasn't willing to learn, adapt, or take responsibility for his own development.
Okay, let's contrast that with Muhammad Ali. He wasn't the typical natural fighter, was he?
No, not by conventional measurements back then.
Yeah.
He didn't have the typical heavyweight physique or perceived strength. His boxing style was totally unorthodox. He didn't block punches traditionally, punch like an amateur, some said, kept his jaw exposed.
He wasn't the natural fighter his opponent Sonny Liston was supposed to be.
Exactly. Liston was the scary, powerful, seemingly unbeatable natural.
Yet Ali famously outsmarted him. How did mindset play into that?
Well, a boxing manager reflecting on Ali's victories apparently said, "He showed us all that all victories come from here," and he tapped his forehead.
The mind.
Not from here, raising his fists. Ali's triumph came from his mind, his strategic thinking, his psychological game, his ability to make Liston believe he was crazy and capable of anything. It was pure growth mindset in action, focusing on mental agility, learning, adapting, rather than just relying on raw, fixed physicality.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then there's Michael Jordan, often called an athletic genius.
The ultimate example, right?
But his genius wasn't just innate, was it? His work ethic was legendary.
Absolutely legendary. His coach was apparently taken aback by his willingness to work harder than anyone else, even after becoming a superstar. After losses, he would famously practice his shots for hours.
He had that quote, didn't he, about missing shots?
Yeah, the famous one. He's missed more than 9,000 shots in his career, lost almost 300 games, missed the game-winning shot 26 times.
Wow.
I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. That perfectly illustrates the growth mindset. Even incredible talent requires relentless effort, learning from failure, and constant work on weaknesses to reach its peak.
And these athletes often had coaches who fostered that growth mindset, right? Like Coach John Wooden at UCLA.
Oh, absolutely. Wooden is a classic growth mindset coach. He led UCLA basketball to an astounding 10 NCAA championships in 12 years.
Incredible record.
But he started with a team that was far from a powerhouse. They practiced in this crowded, dark, and poorly ventilated gym, affectionately known as the B.O. Barn.
B.O. Barn. Nice.
So how did he build a dynasty? His philosophy was rooted in concern, compassion, and consideration for his players, not the dictator approach you saw with some other famous coaches back then.
So less about fear, more about development.
Exactly. He focused on preparing players to perform their best regardless of the circumstances. He valued learning, effort, and the process of improvement over just the final score. He apparently felt as much pleasure from games where his team prepared fully and played near their peak even if they lost, as from championship wins.
That's pure growth mindset right there, focusing on the process.
Totally. And then you have someone like Pat Summitt, the legendary coach of the Tennessee Lady Vols basketball team. She initially struggled with losses, took them very personally.
Common reaction.
Very. But she came to learn that sometimes success had become the enemy because it could make a team complacent, fixed in their ways.
The danger of winning too easily.
Right. She realized that losing sometimes forces everyone to develop a more complete game, pushing them to grow, innovate, and address weaknesses. She learned to use setbacks as fuel for growth.
Okay, let's pivot now to the world of business. Mindsets seem just as crucial there, impacting entire companies.
Absolutely. You see spectacular rises and falls directly linked to the mindset at the top. Consider Albert Dunlap, a CEO often hired for his genius to turn around struggling companies.
Chainsaw Al, right.
That's the one. His approach was classic fixed mindset, focused entirely on short-term appearances for Wall Street. He'd slash jobs, cut costs drastically, sell off assets.
And the stock price would jump.
Initially, yes, but it was all surface level. He refused to look at underlying deficiencies or invest in long-term health. The result: companies like Scott Paper and Sunbeam surged briefly, then fell apart after he left. He prioritized his image as a genius over sustainable substance.
We also see the dark side of a fixed mindset in the culture of Enron, don't we?
Oh, Enron is a textbook case. They explicitly praised stars and valued innate, fixed intelligence above all else. They cultivated this intense pressure to appear brilliant.
And the result was?
The result was a culture where people felt compelled to hide information, cut corners, and eventually cheat, all to maintain this image of effortless superiority. The focus on fixed talent stifled real innovation, buried problems, and crushed accountability. It contributed directly to its infamous collapse.
It's a stark warning of what happens when that fixed mindset permeates an entire organization.
Absolutely. But in stark contrast, we have Lou Gerstner. He was an avowed growth mindsetter, brought in to turn around IBM in 1993 when it was really struggling.
IBM was in trouble then.
Big trouble. The culture was described as having rampant smugness and elitism, no teamwork, only turf wars. Sound familiar? A bit like Enron's internal dynamic.
So how did Gerstner tackle it?
He focused immediately on growth, not self-importance. From day one, he opened up dialogue, created channels for honest feedback, which apparently stunned executives used to just kissing up.
Shaking things like.
Totally. He actively rooted out that smugness and elitism. He prioritized personnel development, teamwork, and explicitly valued an openness to giving and receiving feedback. His growth-oriented approach turned IBM around, bringing it back to leadership. It shows the power of a leader's mindset.
So the key takeaway for organizations seems pretty clear.
It really is. Growth mindset companies tend to foster risk-taking, innovation, creativity, teamwork. Employees feel supported even when things don't go perfectly. They learn from mistakes.
Whereas fixed mindset companies,
They're often rife with cutthroat or unethical behavior, secrecy, blame games, and this intense internal competition where everyone just wants to be the superstar, often at the expense of colleagues and the company itself. It creates a really unhealthy, unproductive, and often unsustainable environment.
Okay, so we've seen how mindsets impact personal achievement, professional success.
Yeah.
But where it gets really personal, I think, is in relationships.
The stakes feel highest there sometimes.
Yeah. And it's not just about believing your own traits are fixed. In relationships, the fixed mindset seems to extend to believing your partner's qualities are fixed too.
Exactly. And even the relationship itself is viewed as fixed, inherently good or bad, meant to be or not meant to be.
Like it's predetermined some.
Precisely. The fixed mindset paints this ideal picture of instant, perfect, and perpetual compatibility. Like a fairy tale, you know. Riding off into the sunset, they lived happily ever after without any actual effort involved.
And that's where the problems start, this idea of no effort.
That's one of the biggest traps, yes. The no effort belief. This core idea that if you have to work at it, it wasn't meant to be.
It sounds romantic maybe, but it's destructive.
Incredibly destructive. It leads people to expect everything good to happen automatically, as if love itself will magically solve all disagreements, smooth over all differences, meet all needs.
But real life isn't like that.
Not at all. This belief causes relationships to go stale or break down because people genuinely believe being in love means never having to do anything taxing.
Do relationship experts agree with that?
Not a single one. Every expert disagrees vehemently. The psychiatrist Aaron Beck states that one of the most destructive beliefs for a relationship is, if we need to work at it, there's something seriously wrong with our relationship.
Well, the most destructive.
And John Gottman, a foremost relationship researcher, emphasizes that every marriage demands an effort to keep it on the right track. There's this constant tension between forces holding you together and forces pulling you apart. Work is required.
So this fixed mindset belief literally robs people of the very effort needed for their relationships to actually thrive.
Exactly. Another part of this low-effort trap is the idea of mind reading.
The you should just know problem.
Yes. The fixed mindset expects partners to be like one, believing, my partner should know what I think, feel, and need, and I should know what my partner thinks, feels, and needs.
Which is Impossible.
Completely impossible. And mind reading instead of communicating inevitably backfires.
Is there an example of that?
Yeah, there's a great anecdote in the source material. A couple is sitting together and one partner just says out of the blue, "I need more space."
Oh, boy. Sounds bad.
Right. The other partner's mind goes blank, immediately thinks the relationship is over, catastrophe mode. Finally, they summon the courage to ask, "What? What do you mean?"
And the answer is,
"I need you to move over so I can have more room on the sofa."
oh, see, communication matters.
Totally. Communication gets completely replaced by assumption, leading to all this unnecessary tension and misunderstanding. A no-effort relationship is a doomed relationship. It truly takes work to communicate, understand differences, and resolve conflicts. It's more like they worked happily ever after.
Okay, so what about responding to flaws and setbacks within the relationship? How did the mindsets differ there?
Huge difference. For those with a fixed mindset, when flaws inevitably appear in a partner, they immediately blame the partner's fundamental personality.
So it's not about behavior, it's about who they are.
Exactly. That's just the way he is. She'll never change. This leads to anger and disgust, and the often fatal belief that the problem can't be solved because it's inherent to the person.
That sounds like it would foster contempt.
It absolutely fosters contempt and deep dissatisfaction. Sometimes people with a fixed mindset will even deliberately blind themselves to problems in their partner or their relationship.
Why would they do that?
To avoid confronting a perceived fixed flaw, think of the example of Charlie ignoring his wife Yvonne's obvious flirtation with other men, insisting she was just going through a phase. He didn't want to look into it because if he did, it might confirm a fixed flaw, making the problem seem unfixable in his mind. Better to stay ignorant.
Wow. Denial as a defense mechanism?
Pretty much. And when communication does break down, maybe they finally talk about it. The flaws fly. Blame gets assigned fast and furiously based on these assumed fixed traits.
This must also impact forgiveness after a relationship ends.
Tremendously. In a fixed mindset, rejection feels like being permanently branded. You failed. You're unworthy. Blaming the ex-partner becomes a way to avoid taking any self-blame.
The thinking being,
If my partner's a good guy, then I must be a bad guy for things not working out. So to protect their own self-worth, the ex has to be the villain. This can lead to lasting bitterness and even desires for revenge.
like that man who's...
Yeah. She took my worth with her when she left. Not a day goes by I don't think about how to make her pay. Really dark stuff, born from that fixed view of worth.
How does the growth mindset approach breakups differently?
It's much more about learning and moving forward. The author mentions her cousin, Kathy. After 23 years of marriage ended and dealing with a leg injury, she found herself alone on a Saturday night instead of wallowing.
What did you do?
She declared, "I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and feel sorry for myself." She went out to a dance, met her future husband that night. It exemplifies the growth mindset's ability to learn from experiences, refuse to be defined by setbacks, and embrace the future.
That's a great story. What about competition within relationships?
Another area where mindset makes a big difference, the fixed mindset often creates competition. Who's the smarter one, the more talented one, the more likable one?
Like Martin, the guy who felt diminished when his partner got attention.
Exactly. Martin felt diminished when hotel staff greeted his partner Susan warmly, or when a taxi driver praised her language skills. This leads to resentment and strain because one partner's success is seen as a threat to the other's fixed worth.
Whereas the growth mindset fosters
Collaboration and mutual development. Think of Laura and James. They were vitally interested in each other's development. James spent hours helping Laura brainstorm her dream of writing children's books, pushing her to connect with an illustrator.
This sounds much healthier.
It creates an atmosphere of trust where partners actively help each other become the person they wanted to be, rather than competing with them.
Okay, one more area in relationships. Trusting opinions and dealing with shyness. How does mindset factor in?
Well, people with a fixed mindset can be overly influenced by others' opinions, especially negative ones, leading to self-doubt. The author shares a personal story about being yelled at in a drugstore by women who thought she cut in line. Even after explaining, they waited outside just to tell her, "You're a bad-mannered person."
Wow, that's intense.
And she notes how easily that external judgment could take hold, making her question herself, even though she knew she hadn't done anything wrong. It highlights that vulnerability.
And the story of Julie Lynch, the programmer.
Oh, that's a powerful one. Julie loved computer programming in junior high, really budding talent. But then a teacher criticized a shortcut she took in a program, even though the program ran perfectly fine.
What happened?
Because she had a fixed mindset, she interpreted that criticism as a judgment of her fundamental ability. Her interest just evaporated. She switched her focus entirely. It shows how external judgment, filtered through a fixed mindset, can derail passion and potential.
And shyness. Is that linked to mindset too?
Strongly linked. Research by Jennifer Beer found that fixed mindset individuals were significantly more likely to be shy. Why? Because they see social situations primarily as arenas for judgment of their fixed traits, likability, coolness, intelligence.
Like George, the client who froze.
Exactly. George was so eager to look cool, witty, and confident, and terrified he'd look overeager and inept, that when a coworker flirted, he completely shut down and acted cold, saying, "It doesn't matter to me if you sit down or not." He was trying to protect himself from rejection by ending the interaction quickly.
But he was able to change.
Yes, by shifting his focus. Instead of being judged, he started focusing on developing a relationship. He approached his coworker later, apologized, explained he was nervous, and asked her to lunch. They ended up dating.
That's great. So the growth mindset helps overcome that fear of judgment.
It helps people see prejudice or criticism more as someone else's view of them, allowing them to confront it with their confidence and abilities intact, rather than letting it define them.
Lastly, what about bullying? How do mindsets affect reactions there?
Big difference again. Fixed mindset students tend to take bullying very personally. They see it as a reflection of who they were, proof of their inadequacy. This often leads to feelings of helplessness and thoughts of violent retaliation, wanting to strike back because they feel permanently branded.
And growth mindset students?
They're more likely to see the bullying as a psychological problem of the bullies. They might think, the reason he is bothering me is probably that he has problems at home or issues with his grades.
More empathy, less personalization.
Exactly. And their plan is often constructive. They want to try and educate the bullies or confront the person and discuss the issue. They want to connect and solve the problem, not just retaliate. It reflects a desire to understand and improve the situation, not just react defensively. A truly profound difference in processing social adversity.
Okay, let's transition now to where mindsets have just an enormous impact. Parenting and education. This is where we're literally shaping the next generation's outlook on life, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the way we praise, the way we respond to mistakes, it has huge consequences, often in surprising ways.
Yeah, one of the most counterintuitive yet really critical findings from the research involves praise, specifically praising intelligence or talent. You'd think that's good, right?
You'd think, you're so smart, you're a natural. Sounds like great encouragement. But the studies involving hundreds of children show the opposite. Praising intelligence actually harms their motivation and it harms their performance.
Harms them. Yeah.
It sends a subtle but powerful message. If I don't learn something quickly, I'm not smart. Or if I have to try hard, I must not be that talented.
So it connects success to fixed ability, not effort.
Precisely. Children internalize that if things get hard or if they make a mistake, it means they might not be smart or talented after all. This makes them doubt themselves as soon as anything is hard or anything goes wrong.
It makes them afraid to struggle.
Yes. They become slaves of praise, constantly seeking validation of their fixed intelligence and shying away from challenges that might disprove it.
So what's the alternative? What kind of praise actually works?
The alternative, which proves incredibly powerful, is praising the process. Praising effort, strategies, focus, perseverance, improvement.
Like saying?
Like saying, you must have worked really hard on that, or that's a really interesting strategy you used, or I like how you kept trying different approaches, or you really understand how to use metaphors now, or you were really focused on your project. It focuses on the actions the child took, the things they can control.
And this makes a difference because?
This approach makes children love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, seek new strategies, and keep on learning. Instead of building fragile confidence based on inherent ability, it builds real, lasting, lifelong confidence based on their capacity for growth and resilience.
The research actually showed performance differences.
Dramatic differences. In study after study, students' motivation and performance plummeted after they were praised for ability and then faced difficulty. But performance rose for students praised for effort when they faced difficulty. It was almost like praising ability lowered their effective IQs in challenging situations, and praising effort raised them.
That's incredible. Okay, what about responding to mistakes? Not just praising success.
Equally crucial. Fixed mindset parents' reactions to poor performance or misbehavior are often perceived by their children as judgments of their core character.
So the child thinks.
The child reports thinking their parents were worried I wasn't one of the bright kids, or worried I might be a bad kid, or they felt the mistake showed them what kind of person I was, fixed, flawed. This makes mistakes feel intolerable, something to be hidden or lied about.
Whereas growth mindset parents,
They view mistakes very differently. They see them as invaluable opportunities for learning and problem solving. When a child messes up, they don't see it as a judgment of character. They see it as a chance to help me learn ways of doing it better next time, or help me learn better skills for getting along with other kids.
it's about teaching, not judging.
Exactly, like that example of the new mother struggling to nurse her baby. She told herself, we're both learning how to do this. Don't judge, teach. It's a learning process. That's the growth mindset applied to parenting.
And withholding constructive criticism, that's bad too.
Yes. Trying to protect children from discomfort by shielding them from constructive criticism actually harms their future. It prevents them from learning how to receive and use feedback. They come to experience advice, coaching, or any feedback as negative and undermining, rather than as valuable input for improvement.
Okay, beyond parenting, these mindsets profoundly shape educational environments too. What about the idea of lowering standards to boost self-esteem?
That's a common misconception tied to a sort of fixed mindset way of protecting kids, but the research shows it backfires. It simply leads to poorly educated students who feel entitled to easy work and lavish praise, but lack the actual skills and resilience needed for future challenges.
So what do great growth mindset teachers do?
They do the opposite. They set high standards, conveying a belief in the student's potential to reach them, and then they provide the means, the teaching, the support, the strategies for students to reach those standards.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of Dorothy DeLay, the legendary violin teacher at Juilliard. She was in this environment often obsessed with innate talent, but she held this firm Midwestern belief that anything is possible.
So she didn't buy into the talent myth.
Not really. For her, teaching was like watching something grow before her very eyes. If a student came to her and had been told they had no ear for music, she wouldn't just accept that. She'd experiment relentlessly with different ways of teaching them pitch until they developed the ability. She saw teaching as figuring out how to make learning happen, not just identifying who already had it.
That's fantastic. Another example.
Marva Collins, the famous inner-city teacher, her motto is basically, there is no magic here. Mrs. Collins is no miracle worker. I just love children and work harder than a lot of people, and so will you.
High expectations, high support.
Exactly. She transformed students like Gary, who initially refused even to participate. Under her guidance, demanding hard work but showing him how, he began thinking deeply about Macbeth and Socrates. He went from being totally disengaged to writing these profound assignments about ignorance taking over the world. It shows the power of believing in potential and teaching the path to reach it.
Now, for contrast, what about a fixed mindset coach like Bob Knight?
Coach Knight. Famous for his success, but also his methods. His holy grail, according to the research, was the mistake-free game, a fixed mindset ideal.
And his methods reflected that.
Very much so. He used intimidation through fear, the legendary explosions, throwing chairs, yanking players. While he achieved championships, individual players and the team as a whole often collapsed under that intense pressure not to make a mistake.
And the players' feelings about him were complicated.
Deeply complicated. Profound ambivalence is the term used. Isaiah Thomas, one of his biggest stars, famously said something like, there were times when if I had a gun, I think I would have shot him. And there were other times when I wanted to put my arms around him, hug him, and tell him I loved him.
Wow. That says it all.
It reflects the conflict of that fixed mindset leadership, sometimes successful in terms of wins, but often at a tremendous human cost, partly because Knight himself seemed unable to analyze or change his own motivational strategies when they clearly weren't working or were causing harm. He was stuck in his way.
Which brings us back again to Coach John Wooden as the contrast.
Yes, Wooden, with his focus on concern, compassion, and consideration, preparing players to be their best, learn continuously, and focus on the process, not just the outcome. A world of difference in approach.
Finally, there's this insidious message you mentioned. We love you on our terms. How does that play out with fixed mindset parenting?
It's when parents, often unconsciously, send the message that their love and respect are contingent on the child fulfilling specific aspirations, usually ones that reflect well on the parents. Children with a fixed mindset internalize this deeply. They feel their parents won't truly value them unless they achieve these predetermined goals.
Like Sandy. The girl pushed towards Harvard.
Exactly. Sandy loved science, but her parents were fixated on the Harvard label. The pressure was immense. When she didn't get in, she developed an ulcer and fell into a deep depression, feeling she had failed not just herself, but her parents' core expectations of her worth. For her parents, it seemed more about the prestigious label than about her actual love of learning or her well-being.
And John McEnroe's father fits this pattern, too.
A prime example, according to the book. Very judgmental, applying immense pressure, living vicariously through his son's junior career. McEnroe himself admitted he didn't truly love to play tennis, only the validation and success it brought. This contrasts sharply with someone like Tiger Woods' father, who, despite high expectations, seemed to genuinely foster a deep love of learning, discipline, and the process of improvement in Tiger, rather than making love contingent solely on performance.
So it comes down to whether parents are valuing the learning and growth process or just the external achievements and labels.
Precisely. That's the crucial difference.
Okay, so we've seen how influential these mindsets are across so many areas of life. The big question then becomes, can people actually change? Can you cultivate a growth mindset if you recognize you've been operating more from a fixed one?
Absolutely. The good news is, yes, change is entirely possible for anyone. It's not always easy, but it's definitely achievable.
How does that change actually happen? Is it like flipping a switch?
Not exactly like flipping a switch. It's important to understand the nature of change itself. The research suggests it's not like surgery, where you just cut out the old fixed beliefs and they're gone forever.
Okay, so how does it work then?
It's more like new beliefs take their place alongside the old ones. You start building and strengthening the growth-oriented beliefs, and as they get stronger, they offer you a different way to think, feel, and act. Gradually, the influence of the old fixed mindset diminishes, but it might still pop up sometimes, especially under stress.
That makes sense. It's a process, not an event.
Exactly. This understanding actually emerged from the work of the psychiatrist Aaron Beck back in the 1960s. He was working with patients with anxiety and depression, and he had this breakthrough realization. He saw that their beliefs were causing their problem.
Their beliefs, not just their circumstances.
Right. He noticed that just before a wave of anxiety or depression hit them, a specific kind of thought would flash through their minds. Often a fixed mindset thought, like, Dr. Beck thinks I'm incompetent, or this proves I'm a failure. These often unconscious beliefs were the root trigger for their negative feelings.
Wow. So just learning about the growth mindset can start the change.
It can have a huge impact. Simply acquiring this knowledge, understanding that there's another way to view ability and challenges, can cause a big shift for people.
Like those brainology workshops you mentioned.
Exactly. Those workshops explicitly teach students about neuroplasticity, how the brain actually works and grows. They learn that when you learn new things, these tiny connections in the brain actually multiply and get stronger.
So the brain isn't fixed either.
Precisely. The more that you challenge your mind to learn, the more your brain cells grow. Then, things that you once found very hard or even impossible, like speaking a foreign language or doing algebra, seem to become easy. The result is a stronger, smarter brain.
That knowledge must be incredibly empowering for students.
It really is. Remember Jimmy, the hardcore, turned-off student? When he learned this, he apparently said with tears in his eyes, "You mean I don't have to be dumb?"
Oh, wow.
That realization that he was actually in charge of his mind, that he could help it grow, it transformed his engagement and performance in school. It's that aha moment when you realize your brain isn't static. That effort builds intelligence.
Okay, so what does this mean practically for someone listening right now who wants to cultivate more of a growth mindset? What are the steps?
A really crucial first step is to identify your own fixed mindset persona.
In my fixed mindset persona. What's that?
It's that inner voice we all have. The one that warns you to avoid challenges. Don't try that. You'll look stupid. The one that criticizes you when you inevitably stumble. See, I told you couldn't do it. Or the one that just generally beats you up. You're just not good enough.
We all have that voice, even growth-minded people.
Yep. Everyone has one, even if it's quieter or they manage it better. Acknowledging it, maybe even giving it a name like Gertrude or Dumping Dan, as the book suggests, is a powerful first step.
Why name it?
Naming it helps to externalize it. It helps you realize it's a part of you, a voice you have, but it's not all of you. It creates a bit of psychological distance, making it easier to observe its patterns and redirect its influence, rather than just automatically believing everything it says and letting it control your reactions.
Okay, so you recognize the voice, you name it. What next?
The process of change then involves about 4 key steps. First, as we said, hear it. Start noticing when your fixed mindset persona speaks up. What situations trigger it? What does it usually say?
Second.
Second, name it. Acknowledge it when it appears. There's Gertrude again telling me I'm going to fail. Third, educate it. This is important. Don't just fight it or try to suppress it. Gently, patiently, teach this persona the new growth mindset ways of thinking. Remind it, and yourself, how challenges lead to growth, how effort builds skill, how setbacks are learning opportunities. Talk back to it with the growth perspective.
And the fourth step.
Finally, take it with you on your journey. Don't try to banish it entirely because it often pops up when you're pushing your boundaries, which is good. Instead, integrate it. Teach it to support you, to maybe voice concerns. Okay, this is risky, what's our plan? Rather than just shouting warnings, stop, danger. Understand its original purpose. Often it's trying to keep you safe from hurt or failure, but show it a more effective, growth-oriented way to achieve that.
That's a really interesting framework. Hear it, name it, educate it, take it with you. Are there other practical steps for daily growth?
Yes, a few concrete things. First, maybe a visual reminder. The author suggests taping a graphic summary of the two mindsets, like that Nigel Holmes diagram we talked about, to your mirror. Use it each morning as a quick reminder of the differences and where you want to focus.
Simple, but could be effective. What else?
Then, as you think about your day, engage in a deliberate daily inquiry. Ask yourself, what are the opportunities for learning and growth today? For myself, for the people around me? This actively primes your mind to seek out and recognize growth experiences throughout the day.
Okay, find the opportunities. Then what?
Then, for any opportunities you identify, or for any inevitable obstacles you anticipate or encounter, make a concrete plan. Ask yourself specifically, when, where, and how will I embark on my plan? Or if you hit a snag, when, where, and how will I act on my new plan?
Get really specific.
Super specific. Visualize it in vivid detail. Research shows this kind of concrete planning leads to incredibly high levels of follow-through compared to just having a vague intention. And crucially, commit to it. The advice is, regardless of how bad you may feel, do it. Even when that fixed mindset persona is screaming at you to retreat, stick to your growth-oriented plan.
Persistence is key. And what about when things go well? When success happens?
Don't just stop there and bask in it. Ask yourself, okay, this worked. What do I have to do to maintain and continue the growth? Keep the momentum going. Remember what baseball player Alex Rodriguez apparently said, you either go one way or the other. You might as well be the one deciding the direction, right? Keep pushing forward.
That makes sense. How does this apply to things like willpower and self-control? Dieting, quitting smoking, managing anger?
It applies directly. For the fixed mindset, willpower is often seen as a fixed trait. You either have it or you don't. So any lapse, eating the cake, having a cigarette, losing your temper, is seen as proof that you lack willpower, that you're incompetent, weak, or bad. This leads to self-condemnation and often giving up entirely, a cycle of failure.
But the growth mindset sees willpower differently.
Totally differently. With a growth mindset, willpower isn't a fixed trait. It's understood as being about learning, practicing, and refining strategies that work for them. It's a skill you develop.
So setbacks aren't fatal.
Not at all. Setbacks are not doom. They're simply a reminder that you're an unfinished human being and a clue to how to do it better next time. It's a learning process, not some epic battle between a good you and a bad you.
So you focus on strategies.
Exactly. You figure out what works for you. For dieting, maybe it's planning specific strategies like keeping tempting foods out of the house or scheduling a weekly treat so you don't feel deprived. For anger management, maybe it's learning techniques like leaving the room, writing down your thoughts before speaking, or finding ways to inject humor into minor irritations. You learn and adapt.
Okay, this all sounds very positive. But you mentioned a warning, a false growth mindset.
Yes, this is a crucial point to end on for this section. It's possible to talk the growth mindset talk, to use the strategies, but without genuinely shifting the underlying belief. People might praise effort, embrace challenges superficially, but still fundamentally believe that true ability is fixed.
And why is that a problem?
It can backfire. If you're just going through the motions of growth strategies while secretly still holding a fixed mindset, you can become easily disillusioned. You might think, I'm doing all this effort stuff, but it's still hard. Things shouldn't need such effort if I were really capable.
So the underlying belief sabotages the strategies.
Exactly. True. Sustainable change comes from shifting the underlying belief that your abilities are cultivable. The strategies are tools to help enact that belief, but they aren't substitutes for it. It's a really important distinction.
Wow. This deep dive into mindsets, it really reveals the truly transformative power of shifting your perspective, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's about moving from that belief in static, fixed traits to genuinely embracing continuous learning and development as just the way life works.
And that fundamental shift impacts absolutely everything. Your personal achievements, the quality of your relationships, your resilience when you face life's inevitable challenges and setbacks.
It reminds us that our abilities, our potential, even our capacity for happiness, they aren't predetermined at birth.
Not at all. They're cultivated, they're grown, they're nurtured through our effort, through the strategies we learn and use, and through our openness to learning from every single experience, the good and the bad.
So, thinking about everyone listening, what does this all mean for you? If potential is truly unknown and unknowable, if it's really impossible to foresee what years of passion, hard work, and training can accomplish,
Then what cherished belief about your own abilities or maybe your limitations might you be holding on to right now? A belief that could actually be holding you back without you even realizing it.
and what tiny, seemingly insignificant step could you take, maybe even today, to challenge that belief, to start cultivating something new within yourself?
It's worth considering that the greatest achievements, the most fulfilling lives, often come not from relying on inherent static gifts, but from the relentless dedication to the process of becoming rather than just being, that journey of growth itself.